Greetings and welcome to Prison News as we get ready to go ahead and continue our look at McGuffy's readers. Readers that were used not only for inmate children and inmates themselves, but also regular children and regular schools as well. Next story, Jenny's Call.
It's of no use, Mrs. Templar. I've been trying a greater part of this hour to catch that rogue of a horse. She just won't be caught.
Such was the report the hired man brought to Mrs. Templar one pleasant May morning when she had been planning a ride.
"I suppose it cannot be helped, but I wanted her very much,"
she said as she turned away.
"What is it you wanted, Mother?"
asked Jenny Templar, a bright, brown-haired, brown-eyed girl of 12 who had just come into the room.
"Fanny, the horse," said Mother. "It is such a beautiful morning. I meant to drive down to your village, get some groceries, and then call on your Aunt Anne. Then we were going to have a nice trip up the road, and I was going to bring her home for dinner. But Father's away for all day, and the men have been trying for over an hour to catch that horse, Fanny. One of the men says she can't be caught." "Maybe she can't by him," said Jenny with a merry laugh. "But get ready, Mother. You shall go if you like. I'll catch Fanny and harness her, too." "Why, my child, they say she jumped like the ditch 3 or 4 times and acted like a wild creature. You'll only be late to school, just get tired for nothing." "It won't take long, Mother. Fanny will come with me," said Jenny cheerily.
She put on her wide straw hat and was off in a moment down the hill to the field where the horse was grazing. The moment the horse heard the rustle of Jenny's dress, she pricked up her ears, snorted, and, with her head erect, she seemed ready to bound away again. But she heard,
"Fanny, oh, Fanny,"
called Jenny, and the beautiful creature turned her head. That gentle tone that horse Fanny knew so well. Glad to see her friend, she came directly to the fence and rubbed her head on the girl's shoulder. As soon as the gate was open, she followed Jenny to the barn. The men who had treated her roughly, and she remembered it, but she knew and loved that voice that was always kind, and the hand that often fed and caressed her. She gave love for love and willingly services. Next. Poor Davy. It was recess time at the village school. The bell had rung, and the children had run out in the bright sunshine, wild with laughter and fun. All but poor Davy. He came out last and very slowly, but he did not laugh. He wasn't in trouble, and the bright golden sunlight did not make him glad. He walked across the yard and sat down on a stone behind the old maple. A little bird on the highest branch sang to him, just to try to make him laugh, but Davy did not notice. He was thinking of the cruel words that had been said about his ragged clothes. The tears stole out of his eyes and ran down his cheeks. Poor Davy had no father, and his mother had to work hard to keep him in school. That night he went home by the path that led across the fields and through the woods. He still felt real bad. Davy did not wish to trouble his mother, so he lingered a while among the trees, and at last he threw himself on the green moss under them. Just then his teacher came along. She saw what it was and stopped, saying kindly, "What is the matter, Davy?" He did not speak, but the tears began again to start. "Won't you tell me? Perhaps I can help you." Then Davy paused, and he told her all his trouble. When he ended, she cheerily said, "I have a plan, Davy, that I think will help you." "Oh, what is it?" he said, sitting up with a look of hope, while a tear fell upon the ground. "Well, how would you like to be a little flower merchant?" "And earn some money?" said Davy. "That would be fine, but where shall I get any flowers?" "Right here in these woods and in the fields," said his teacher. "Here are lovely blue violets down by the brook, are white ones, and among the rocks are some ferns and even some moss. Bring them all to my house, and I'll help you to arrange them, Davy." So, day after day, Davy hunted the woods for the prettiest flowers and the most dainty ferns and mosses. After his teacher had helped him to arrange them, he took them to the city that was near and sold them. He soon had earned enough money to buy new clothes. Now the sunshine and the bird's song made him glad. Next, Bessie. One day Bessie thought how nice it would be to have a garden with only wild flowers in it. So into the house she ran to find her Aunt Annie and ask her permission to go over to the other side of the hillside, over there across the brook where the wild flowers grew the thickest.
Yes, indeed, you may go, said Aunt Annie, but what will you put the roots and earth in while you're making that garden?
Oh, said Bessie,
I can put 'em in my apron.
Her aunt laughed and said,
A basket will be better, I think.
So they looked in the closets and the attic everywhere, but some of the baskets were full and some broken. Not one could they find that would do. Then Aunt Annie turned out the spools and the bags from a large work basket and gave that to Bessie.
You may have this for your own, she said, to fill with the earth or the flowers or anything else you like. Oh, thank you,
said Bessie, and she danced away through the garden. She slipped through the gate out into the field, all scarred up with dandelions up and down the side, and by the brook. Then she went up on the hillside, out of sight among the shady trees. How she worked that afternoon! She heaped up the dark, rich earth and smoothed it over with her hands. Then she dug up the violets and the spring beauties and all the other flowers, running back and forth and singing all the time. The squirrels peeped out of their holes at Bessie. The birds sang in the branches overhead. Thump, thump, came something all at once into the middle of the bed. Bessie jumped and upset the basket, and away it rolled down the head. How Bessie laughed when she saw a big brown toad winking his bright eyes at her, as if he would say,
No offense. I didn't mean to scare you.
Just then Bessie heard a bell ringing loudly. She knew it was calling her home, but how could she leave her basket? She must look for that first. Waiting, waiting, waiting. All at once sang a bird out of the sight among the branches.
Waiting, Bessie?
Sure enough, said Bessie.
Perhaps I'm making dear mother or auntie wait, and they are so good to me. I better just let that basket wait. I can run down and get it later. Take care of it, Birdie, and don't jump on my flowers, Mr. Toad.
Part 2. She was back in the house at a few minutes, calling,
Mother, Mother, Auntie, who wants me?
I, dear, said her mother.
I'm going away for a long visit. If you had not come at once, I could have not said goodbye to my little girl.
Then Bessie's mother kissed her and told her to obey her kind aunt while she was gone. The next morning Bessie walked to find it raining very hard. She walked and went under a tree for some shelter. Then she went back to her aunt's room with a very sad face.
Oh, Auntie, it's the old rain. This new fresh rain, Bessie, it will make our flowers grow. It's a good time we can have now in the house together. I know it, Auntie, but you will think me so careless. Why, to let it rain? No, don't laugh, Auntie. To leave your nice basket out of doors all night, and now it will be soaked and ruined in this beautiful rain.
Bessie did not look as if the beautiful rain made her very happy.
You must be more careful, dear. Another time, said her aunt gently. But come, tell me about it.
So Bessie crept very close to her auntie's side and told her about the happy time the day before, of the squirrel and the toad, and how the basket rolled away. Now it's clear down the hill, and how the bell rang and she just couldn't stop to find the basket.
You did quite right, said her aunt. If you had stopped, your mother might have waited the whole day, or else gone without seeing you. When I write, I will tell her how obedient you were, and that will please her more than anything else I can say.
Next, the truant. James Brown was 10 years old when his parents sent him to school. It was not far from his home, and therefore they sent him by himself. But instead of going to school, he was in the habit of playing truant. He would go into the fields or spend his time with idle boys. But that was not all. When he went home, he would falsely tell his mother that he had been to school. And he had his lessons done him very well. One fine morning, his mother told James to make haste home from school, for she wished after that she had something she wanted him to take back to his aunt's. But instead of minding her, he went off to the water, where there were some boats. There he met plenty of idle boys. Some of these boys found that James had a little bit of money, which his aunt had given him, and he was led by them to hire a boat and to go with them upon the water. Little did James think of the danger into which he was running. Soon the wind began to blow, and none of them knew how to manage the boat. For some time they struggled against the wind and the tide. At last they became so tired they could not row any longer. A large wave hit and upset the boat, and they were all thrown into the water. Think of James Brown, the truant, at this time. He was far from home, known by no one. His parents were ignorant of his danger. He was struggling in the water to the point of being drowned. Some men, however, saw the boys and went out to them in a boat. They reached them just in time to save them from a watery grave. They took the boys into a house where their clothes were dried. After a while, they were sent home to their parents. James was very sorry for his conduct, and he was never known to be guilty of the same thing again. He became regular at school and learned to attend to his books and, above all, to obey his parents perfectly. Next, a McGuffy's poem. My little white kitten's asleep on my knee, as white as the snow or the lilies is she. She wakes with a purr when I stroke her soft fur. Was there ever a white kitten like her? Next, the beaver. The beaver is found chiefly in North America. It's about 3.5 feet long, including the flat, paddle-shaped tail, which is a foot in length. The long, shining hair on the back is chestnut-colored, while the fine, soft fur that lies next to the skin is kind of a grayish-brown. Beavers build them some of the most curious things to live in, and they're quite frequently found in great numbers in these huts that are placed close together, almost like the buildings of a town. They always build their huts on the banks of rivers or lakes, for they swim much. No more easily than walk and prefer moving about in the water. When they build on the bank of a running stream, they make a dam across the stream for the purpose of keeping the water at the height that they wish. Now, these dams are made chiefly of mud and stones and the branches of trees. They're sometimes 600 or 700 feet in length and are so constructed that they look more like a work of a man than that of a dumb little beast. Their huts are made of the same material as those dams that they use, and they're round in shape. The walls are very thick, and the roofs are finished off with a thick layer of mud, sticks, and leaves. They commence building their houses late in the summer, but they do not get them finished before the early frosts. The freezing makes them tighter and stronger. They obtain the wood for their dams and their huts by gnawing through the branches of trees, and even though the trunks of the small ones with their sharp front teeth, they peel off the bark, and they lay it up in store for winter food. The fur of the beaver is highly prized. The men who hunt these animals are called trappers. A gentleman once saw 5 young beavers playing. They would leap on the trunk of a tree that lay near a beaver dam and would push one another off playfully into the water. He crept forwardly very cautiously and was just about to fire on these little creatures, but their amusing tricks reminded him so much of some little children that he knew at home that he thought it would be inhuman to kill them. So he left them to play without even disturbing them. Next, the young teacher. Charlie Rose lived in the country with his father, who taught him to read and write. Mr. Rose told his son that when the morning lessons were over, he might amuse himself for 1 hour however he pleased. There was a river nearby. On its bank stood the hut of a poor fisherman who lived by selling fish. His careful wife kept her spinning wheel going early and late. They both worked very hard to try to keep themselves above poverty, but they were greatly troubled lest their only son should never learn to read and write. They could not teach him themselves, and they were too poor to send him out to school. Charles called at the hut of the fisherman one day to inquire about his dog, which was missing. He found the little boy, whose name was Joe, sitting by the table, on which he was making marks with a piece of chalk. Charlie asked him whether he was drawing pictures.
"No, but I'm trying to write," said little Joe. "But I only know 2 words, those I saw upon a sign, and I'm trying to learn how to write 'em. If I could only learn to read and write," he said, "I would be the happiest boy in the world." "Then I will make you happy," said Charles. "I'm only a little boy, but I can teach you. My father gives me about an hour every day to myself.